Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this Global Talk webinar. I am your host, Denisse Macias, and I am so excited to welcome you from wherever you are in the world. And today we're going to be discussing one of my favorite places in the world, which is the Riviera Maya. And with me today, I am going to have my co-host Laura Guillen from iMexico. Laura Guillen is an outstanding professional, and she is also a top producer. She is a grand connoisseur of the Riviera Maya, and we are going to be discussing Tulum specifically. The Riviera Maya is a region, and Tulum is one of those places that is part of that region. And we're going to tell you why later. But first, I want to ask you to stay muted. And also, this is a very positive conversation. So we expect a lot of positive things to come from this. And I just want to say, if you are an entrepreneur, you are in the right spot. If you are an investor, this is your place. And if you are a business professional that is looking to expand your business into the Riviera Maya, then welcome. We are your source and we are excited to be here. We are here every Friday, every last Friday of the month. And I am going to bring the world to you. And today we're going to bring you Tulum. If you are not following me, please follow me. You have all the different icons on the screen right now of the different places that you can find me. You can find me on Instagram. You can find me on YouTube. You can find me on the different forums and different social media. Find me on LinkedIn. But without further ado, I want to welcome Laura. I want her to introduce herself and let's get started.
Thank you, Denise. Thank you, everyone that is connecting today. It's a pleasure to having you here. I'm Laura Guillen. As Denise was saying, I'm here in the Riviera Maya, especially in Playa del Carmen. This is where we focus more, especially in Tulum as well. So this is the two places where we focus the more because are the ones that we have the best opportunities. And as Denise was saying, today we will be talking about Tulum, that now is, a very trendy destination. And today we will explain and talk about different topics so you guys can understand better this destination. So I will go ahead and share my screen. Just 1 second.
Let me stop my share. You got it.
Okay, great. So there's like different topics here we will talk about. So I will start with the first one so you can have more idea about, how is Tulum going right now. So one of them is we gotta understand the business landscaping of Tulum. So what is the current economic climate in Tulum? So we know that right now the tourism remains, and we always have known that there's been always a mix of, international tourism. And we know that right now, I guess in everywhere in the world and in Mexico, there been some tough times in the last few months. So we know that especially Tulum start growing like super fast in the last 3-4 years, and because it went by fast, right now we had the growth slow a little bit. So we drop a little bit on visitors, but right now it's like, getting recovered. And especially,
Laura, I
in
feel like the reason why there's like that little bit of a decline is because, as you said, it was really fast and then it just kind of started to like balance itself. Don't you feel? Because it's not like
yeah.
it stopped because there was like all these different like YouTube videos flying around. Oh, it's empty. It is not. There's still tons of tourism and still evolving, but there was just this fast growth, especially going from just a small little town into all that growth. So, anyways, sorry, keep going.
Yes, it was, I guess the last, after the pandemic, like it was very explosive, like growing, like it was super trendy, and the prices start increasing a lot. But now, like you're saying, we see now like a transition into a more, like you're saying, mature and selective market. So it's more stable. And of course, there's still tourism demand, and it's still very strong overall, but it has become less consistent because there's been changes. And I think most people right now are also very more like price sensitive. So, and right now, because it became a little bit slower, but it was like the last 6 months, it was kind of a slow, but generally, I knew like in Los Cabos, Puerto Vallarta, Playa del Carmen, Cancun was also very slow, especially for us in sales. But as soon as, we hit like December, January, February, March, right now it's like a lot of people here, a lot of visitors, and we still have a lot of people like, okay, I want to be in Tulum at least 4 months, 6 months, so a little bit like more like longer stays. And but yeah, now also there's a lot of yeah, a lot of people that they want to relocate, and a lot of people they are into like wellness, so they really like Tulum. So
Yeah, so you're
like,
seeing a lot of the different digital nomads or the different work from home groups that are kind of moving into the area, aren't you?
yeah, yeah, yeah. We have a different like visitor profile now, but it's still we have, the short-term visitors, but now it's more like they want to establish in Tulum. They want to open up businesses in Tulum. So, but yeah, and now we see a little bit of mix. Like I was saying, we have like a mix of international mix, but now we see before it was more like people like with more like a spending power, like a lot of like rich people. Now we see a little bit of a mix, like like everyone is coming to Tulum, which
Yeah.
is great. Yes. And I mean, yeah, Tulum is not collapsing, but is growing, is growing. And Tulum, I see it as a more like long-term investment. Because
Mm.
right now we might be a little bit low, like it was before, but right now is where we find the great opportunities, like in terms of prices, and it's great right now that we still recommend to invest because it's growing, and once the economy or one Tulum is like too high, too on the top, the prices will start increasing again. So now there's still a great opportunity to invest here.
And I think you said something that's very key that most people need to understand about their investment in Tulum. Tulum is not Cancun. Tulum is not Playa. Tulum is its own market. And when you talk about the long-term investment, I think you and I saw that when we had a gentleman want to sell a month after he had purchased. And we're like, maybe you ought to slow down because that's not the kind of market that Tulum is. If you want to hold on to your asset and gain that equity, then I think that's kind of where you want to invest. But if you're wanting a fast turnaround, then that's definitely not going to be your market. So thank you for sharing that. And thank you for giving us the economic climate.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, it's for someone that is looking like a long-term investment, and in the future when Tulum is fully developed, like we can see in cities, as Playa del Carmen, Cancun, like it's more stable. But once it's like all the commercial projects are completely ready, this is where the prices will be very high, and we will be already too late to invest. So I think right now it's still good for someone that they want to be patient and they want to see their money grow, you know, through the years.
Yeah,
But
and
yeah,
vacation and stay there because Tulum is
yes,
amazing. See, I always say if you want to go beaching and you just want a beach lounge, Tulum is your place. If you are wanting to just kind of have these different juice bars and really focus on your vitality, rejuvenation, and serenity, that's what Tulum is about. So,
yes, that is correct. And well, this is just like a little statistic about how the Riviera Maya and Tulum, especially, they've been growing, through the years. So we know after the pandemic, it was a little bit hard, but after we can see the growth here in 2022, and now 2025 is like going super fast. They're actually about to finish the first mall that we will have in Tulum, because we have little plazas, but the first like big mall with real like, like a lot of international brands, like and also there's going to be a cinema, and in a very good location. So this is actually like attracting a lot of investors, because we see that Tulum is growing very fast. Like 4 years ago, we didn't have a supermarket in Tulum. They had to travel to Playa. Now we have like four big supermarkets. Now we will have a plaza. Probably this summer, 2026, it will be completely finished. And a lot of like international schools are opening up. And of course, the international airport that is being open for 2 years. So we have seen the Mayan train. So it's growing a lot. So we know like in Mexico, like Riviera Maya is growing more than other states, like it's growing super fast, and especially Tulum.
I
Tulum.
feel like that mall is going to bring it's going to be a game changer for the area itself because if you've been to Tulum, you know that there's a skinny little road and there's so many little boutiques that are along there. So I think also too, one of the things that will also help too is to, for those people that are looking to buy place, if they're looking to buy furniture, it'll be more accessible too as well because Tulum is about like, what is it, 2 hours away from the airport, the main Cancun airport. And so
Yes.
anybody that lands in Cancun has to drive out. Now there's a new airport that is there as well too, but for anybody that is landing out in Cancun, you got to drive out. And so if you're thinking, buying a place that is unfurnished, those are some of the things that you kind of have to think about. So that's great that they're bringing a new mall into the place. And you're right, there's so many things that are going to be changing about this place.
Yes, that is correct. Yes. And also, well, as you were mentioning, like the connectivity and the development, and like they're right now investing like a lot of money, and we know that very, very soon, I mean, they start to bring in like more events into Tulum. So we know, like, in January we have the Tomorrowland Samna Festival, but now they're starting to plan more musical festivals through the year, not only like in the beginning of the year. Usually it's January, so they're trying to do it more like often, and probably have like 10 festivals per year in Tulum, and different festivals, not only electronic music. So they're trying to do a mix. And also they're planning a I don't know if you guys hear about the NASCAR, the Formula One. So they're
Yeah.
trying to bring an event, like this, because in the future, in probably 3 years, they will be opening. That's what they're saying. They're saying, it will happen in Puerto Aventuras, close to Tulum. But all these international events will bring, of course, more development and more visitors, into Tulum.
Wow, that's incredible. Because I mean, that's the best part about going to Tulum too as well, finding an incredible, concert in the middle of the jungle. And I don't think that most people know this, but the jungle is very special to host these concerts because typically it's kind of has like a noise barrier. So wherever it's happening, you can hear it, but outside of those walls in the jungle, you can no longer hear it. The sound doesn't carry. So it's pretty phenomenal. And then looking at the route for the train Maya that you have on the screen. Wow. Honestly, those are some of the places that I think, that a lot of the nationals, even, in Mexico, were having a hard time reaching out to the peninsula. And now with this train, you can get a roundabout of all these different states, Yucatan, Campeche, you're going to Tabasco, you're going to Chiapas. Those were a dream. And now they're fully accessible via train.
Yes. So yeah, a lot of connectivity and development. And oops, 1 second. So I also we wanted to talk about the some of the regulatory challenges for foreigner investors in Tulum. So if they, I mean, in Tulum or Riviera Maya in general. So I will say, as you guys know, just give me 1 second because I don't see here the slide, but it's the in order to own land or property here in Mexico, the non-Mexican citizens, they have to go through the trust, the bank trust, or the Mexican corporation in order to own land, as we are located in that we call restricted zone, which is, 50 kilometers around the ocean or 100 kilometers to the border cities. So they have to go through this process, but this is a very easy process, not impossible, but of course you have to go through this process. If you are a Mexican American, you don't have to go through that process. You only need to have your ID. And so this is, I will say, one of the first challenges. But of course, this is not impossible. It's just one more step before, buying the property that the investors have to go through. And also, there has to be due diligence, before you buy property. This is very important because especially in Tulum, there's a lot of land that is not regulated, and there's a lot of land that we cannot touch because there's a notice, it's protected. And of course, we have this type of land that we call ejido, which also is not regulated, and we don't recommend to buy, but we have to like do the due diligence or work with someone that they know a lot about, the local market, what these developers, these projects need to have in order to, be legally in Mexico. And of course, a great instructor. So we always recommend to have a professional realtor, of course, and of course a trustful developer. We always recommend to like if this is going to be your first investment, go with an experienced company, a big company that represents these developers, that developer that had experience not only in Mexico, but they have already projects built in Riviera Maya. Like you can, when you travel, you can see, okay, this is a pre-sale, but they have a showroom. I can see how it's going to look like, and I can see, who is the developer, what are the previous projects. So it's very important to work with an experienced developer or an experienced company or an experienced partner that, they know about that. And of course, you also, another challenge I will say is you have to take care and be aware of, the tax, especially if this is going to be an investment. So there has to be the short-term rental tax. Someone has to manage it. So we always recommend you to hire an accountant, a local accountant. Usually, they're not expensive. It's probably $60 per month, something like that. And so 1,000 pesos, and they can take care of, all the tax reports that they have to do if you have a short-term rental. And also the operation, if this is going to be an investment, who is going to operate, who is going to rent your property. So it's important that if you are thinking 100% investment, you will probably use this property one or twice per year. It will be important to buy a project that either has already a management company, or that your realtor or your developer can refer you to a trusted rental company, so that way you don't have to worry about. But we also have a lot of investors that they already know how to make this happen. So a lot of investors, I have had some investors that they already have a management company in the US, or they already manage some properties in the US or other countries, so they can also do it remotely and just hire someone for the cleaning. But I will say that will be the third challenge, like to have someone to take care of the tax reports. And of course, if you're going to buy a property in Mexico that is probably a vacation home that you want to use exclusivity for, for personal use for your family, or if you are thinking about retiring in Mexico or relocate, you only have to be aware of the property tax that is only, once a year, and that one you can just easily do it online. So that one is very easy. But I will say those will be the challenges for the foreign investors here in the Tulum real estate market.
So let me just kind of sum that up a little bit for our viewers. So thank you so much for sharing about the regulatory environment. So a lot of the questions that I get from my clients is, Denisse, I heard that I cannot own property as a foreigner? And as Laura just explained, the answer is yes, you can. And the way that you own it is by a fideicomiso. That is the name for it, and that is the trust. And that's because you're buying in a restricted zone. Outside of that restricted zone, you don't need it. Now, let me tell you very quickly. Back in the day, the way that you used to purchase land as a foreigner was by name borrowing. Well, as a foreign investor, that's not going to work out very long. That wasn't very sustainable. So the Mexican government changed the rules and said, guess what? We don't need a name borrow anymore. You don't need to borrow your neighbor as a citizen. Now we're going to establish a trust, and that is going to be called the Fideicomiso, in which you are the beneficiary. You can own, you can rent, you can sell, but the trust holder is actually the National Bank of Mexico. So that's how it works. And so the answer is yes, you can buy. And then the easiest way to do this is by getting it done through your closing, filling out the proper paperwork at closing, making sure that it's part of your closing cost. And that's the reason why we're bringing so much awareness through these webinars, is because the times that I have ever seen anybody say, oh, it didn't go well, is because number one, they didn't do their homework. And number two, they didn't fill out the correct paperwork. So this is why we're here, because we want to be your source. And as a matter of fact, Laura also mentioned too about vetting your developers. Every single developer that I present on my webinars, it is a developer that has already come vetted on my end through the United States. And these are developers that we cherry picked with US alongside of US government in order to deliver the best products that are out there. So Laura today is here on behalf of iMexico, who's actually a great real estate company, and every single developer they work with is a trusted developer. So everything that we present to you today is an incredible product. We know it's going to provide you with ROI, so have peace of mind. And as a matter of fact, too, on her third point, as far as the taxation, now, if you need to understand your taxation point from the United States, I have incredible international accountants on my radar that I can connect you with, that you can say hello to. But also, too, if you need a local one, as Laura mentioned, Laura is also your source for that local connection. So just wanted to make that clear. Thank you so much, Laura.
No, my pleasure, and thank you, thank you. Okay, so we will move to another topic that we consider very important. So it's like what cultural consideration should foreigner business professionals should be aware of? And there's well, in case of the real estate professionals as well. So in Mexico in general, it's very much important the relationships, and I think I guess everywhere in the world, but especially here in Mexico, we are it's a full like relationships environment, especially in the Riviera Maya. So deals typically they can get close in good terms, but they're always based on relationships, of course. If you have a good relationship, let's say if you're going to buy, you have a good relationship and a good communication, with the company, your realtor. So, we can get very good deals and everything. But yeah, it's very, very important. And sometimes we have seen it with the developers here that new developers like from other parts of Mexico that they are thinking on building in Riviera Maya, they have to first come and make good relationships, because here the rules, the construction rules, like the paperwork is like they're more strict than in other states in Mexico, just to compare. And yeah, we really protect, like, the land. And we always say when there's new builders, they ask them, okay, you have I don't know, 400 square meter of land, you're going to have a project, we need you to leave 30 trees, or we need you to leave 40% of green area. So they're very strict on that. And there's like many permits comparing to other states in Mexico. So it's good to have good relationships, because if you have a partner that is a local partner, that will help you a lot, because they will know how how are the rules, how different are the rules, who they need to talk to, and they don't have to do it the standard way, because if you know someone, that will be much easier. And yeah, relationships, like I said, in terms of business, if you want to develop, if you want to buy, if you want to start promoting, if you are a real estate agent and you want to start promoting through us, like, it's very important to have a good relationship and know the right people, because there's many other companies, many other developers that they might not be 100% transparent, 100% honest, and some other developers or real estate agents, they might not do a correct due diligence, and they might say, okay, yes, we have all the permits, but probably they are missing on one or two. So that's very important to go with the right person, the person that they have a lot of knowledge on the topic, and of course have a good relationship, and networking relationship is very, very important here, especially in Riviera Maya and in real estate. So yeah, it's you have to build trust, and good relationships. If
Absolutely. So I think that
yeah.
transfer to on do not expect to land and do business right away. First, expect to land, have some good tacos, have some good tequila, get to know the person that you're working with. Because I think, especially in Mexican culture, it's important to know who the person is prior to doing business with them. And there is a saying in Mexico that says, cuentas claras, amistades largas, which means that, it means good accounts, longevity to the friendship. And so that's a good way to put it. It's a good way to understand it. And also to, as you said, I think, one of the things that I did prior to working in this area is I made 8 to 10 visits before I decided who I wanted to partner with. So it's not just on the developer side, it's on your side. Like, does it align with what you're needing? Do they have the products that you need? Have you visited some other of their build jobs? Because it's easy to be wowed in that area. It's so beautiful.
Yes. And also to know that, timelines might be flexible,
Mhm.
and yeah, like it can be very flexible. And also, so yeah, like I was saying, sometimes it always depends who you are building the relationship with and how strong the relationship is. And, things can be easier when it comes, for example, if you are trying to relocate and you are looking at, like to get your permanent residency, or or your work permit, and sometimes if you had good relationships with the right people, and very professional lawyers, international lawyers, that way, instead of waiting, I don't know, like 8 months, probably it can be 3 or 4 months, if you have good relationships and good connections as well. So it can be faster and of course easier. So yeah, definitely, like I said, networking is critical, and relationships are like very, very, very important here
Very.
in the Riviera Maya.
Thank
Yes.
you, Laura. Absolutely. Well, we're moving through. We're good on time. So, what do you have for us? Do you have a beautiful development today to present, or do you want to keep moving on to the subject?
Yes, I mean, it's up to you guys. We can keep on the subject, or we can have a development. But yeah, we can probably show a little bit of the what we have here in the
Yes,
Riviera
keep
Maya.
going. I think we're on
And
a roll.
yeah, before I jump on that, because a lot of you guys are like thinking about numbers, especially investors. So just as we always, especially in Tulum, we will be recommending, because we were talking about, this will be a long-term investment, so we can always recommend a pre-sale if you have the opportunity and you are not in a big rush for that. And if you buy in an early pre-sale, you can expect to have at least 18-25%, even more, of appreciation on the property. And of course, well, we see here on the screen that comparing to the rest of Mexico, like here is the appreciation on the property goes faster. And of course, the return on investment in the vacation rental or the long-term rental is goes faster than, in any other touristic destination in Mexico, such as, Mexico City, Los Cabos, Puerto Vallarta. So we want you to be sure that, Riviera Maya is the right place. It's beautiful. We have a lot of natural beauty. And in terms of return on investment and appreciation and, to duplicate or triplicate your investment, like this is the really like right place. Just 1 second, and I will share with you guys in a moment one of the beautiful projects that we have here in Tulum.
That's amazing. I saw that the screen for the foreign investors finally showed up. Because
Yeah.
they're trying to take it off.
Yeah.
That's amazing. Yeah, well, everybody that is listening, now you got to hear some of the cultural considerations and the regulatory environment and also to navigating the economic climate. So if you are now incentivized, to make Tulum your home, this is exactly what we want you to do. We want you to feel comfortable in making this investment and moving forward knowingly, understanding especially the kind of market that Tulum has to offer. So, oh yes, this is one of my favorite ones. Oh, you know what? I think this one is a client favorite, not just my favorite one, but I think this one is a client favorite. Oh,
Yeah, this is also, I really in love of this project. Okay, so just a quick, review on this very beautiful project. This is a project in Tulum located in Aldea Zama, which is the second most developed area or neighborhood in Tulum. Everything, all the services are placed there because we find also some areas in Tulum that are still getting developed, especially Region 15, Region 8, that are a little bit closer to the hotel zone. But there's always, problems with the electricity, and there's not a lot of like, commercial area around that, and the connectivity might be hard. But here is a fully developed neighborhood. This is a project that is basically ready to move in. In new contracts, we are delivering the unit in about 2 months. So all the amenities are ready, all the structure is ready. We only need to, put the finishes and the furniture in the unit. So it might take like about 60 days. But we can say that this project, is basically ready to move in. This is a boutique project. This is only 24 units. All of them are 2 bedroom, 2 baths. And like I was telling you, we are located kind of like in the middle of Tulum. Here we can see the yellow line. This is the federal highway that is connecting Cancun with Tulum. And on the other side of the highway, we have downtown Tulum, where we also have great projects, which downtown Tulum is the #1 developed area. And then after is Aldea Zama, which is on the beach side. And we are kind of like in the middle of the city. We have 2 exits to go to the hotel zone and the city. And most of you guys might know that there are only two streets, 2 avenues that are connecting Tulum downtown or Tulum city with the hotel zone and the ocean. And Aldea Sama is in the middle of this Avenida Cuculcan and Avenida Coba. So we are in a great, great privileged location. And especially because we know a lot of people, we have a lot of investors that they only think about Tulum and they right away ask you, I only want to be in Aldea Sama, because they already know that we have commercial area, we have everything there. You don't need to go anywhere else. And we have an easy connectivity to the beach, to the hotel zone, and the Tulum International Airport that is only about 25 minutes, from Aldea Sama. And 7 minutes to the beach, 11 minutes to the Tulum ruins. We can see here a closer location. And like I said, very, very close to the Tulum beach. This is Aldea Sama, so I'm saying it's fully developed, right? It's fully developed, but we still have a lot of green areas. And it doesn't mean that, these green areas will go away. It's like that. It will stay like that. So we still have 2, 3 projects developing, but, in most of the Aldea Sama, we don't have a lot of current developed things, getting built. And well, this is just a render, as the name says, pink, because it's pink, it's beautiful. And Riyadh means like kind of like a palace, a house. Because we have this name because one of the partners, it's from Casablanca, Morocco, but they live in LA. And of course, the other partner is Macondo Group, which is one of the biggest developers here in Riviera Maya. And as you can see, in terms of the amenities, this is absolutely beautiful. We have the full Riyadh style. There's going to be a bar and a restaurant just right there. And very unique, very unique. You don't find projects like this, like kind of like Mediterranean style in Tulum. So this is very unique. Sometimes we look at other projects in Tulum, and sometimes you get to see the same furniture, like they look very similar. And this one is like very unique. So it will be very different, very like, you know, a lot of people will want to
Gosh,
visit this
and
project.
very stylish. That's how I feel when I'm walking it.
Yes, yes, yes. It's in a gated community inside of Aldea Zama, so this is very important. It's very private. You will not get to see like you go outside of the balcony, you will not get to see like other people in other balconies. Like in front of that, there's like a lot of trees. There's other projects, but it's very private and a very unique, very boutique project. Of course, we have different payment plans. This is very important because with most of the developers here in Riviera Maya, you will need a 30% down payment to close the deal at least. Now with all the Macondo Group projects in Pink Riyadh, we only require 20%. 20% down, and you can pay 80% when you get the key, or you can also do 50-50 or any other payment plan. We start from 446,000 USD for the ground floor unit. And these are real pictures. This is the showroom. Like you can see, there's details on the ceiling, there's details on the floor. A lot of the furniture has been imported, from Morocco. So a lot of the items, in the amenities, like, the hanging lights. We are waiting right now for a big fountain that will be like in the entrance. So very unique, very unique. And we deliver this project the way you see it. So completely, with the concept and completely turnkey. So it's very, very beautiful. As you can see in the layout, the 2 bedrooms are on the side, so they get to have a lot of privacy, private bathrooms, the kitchen and the island in the middle, and the living space and dining room also in the middle. So very, very unique project. And we also have a one penthouse left, which is the same layout, but you get to have a private rooftop with a private pool and very beautiful, very unique views, like green views everywhere. Like this is the ground floor. The ground floor, they get to have a private pool, which is very, very nice. And yeah, very beautiful project. I show you a little video so you can see more of this beauty.
I really love this project. It was one of my favorite ones visiting. I think every client loves it too. So you said a lot of these things are brought in from Morocco, a lot of the different features.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes, and also a lot of the materials they were brought from Morocco. That's why it was taking a little bit more time to deliver, the units to some of the owners. We already delivered a few of the units, but some of them we are pending on some materials that they have to arrive from Morocco. So, but it's totally worth it to wait, a little bit more time. But yeah, it's
Yeah.
beautiful.
And the pool stone, it actually shimmers. Can't see it in the video itself, but I
Yeah.
remember looking at that and seeing that all the stone. I think the architect that I spoke to said he called it a girasol. I don't know how to say that in English. But if somebody can translate that in the comments, then let me know. But it's stunning features for sure. And it's a very accessible, it's a very accessible price, especially, well, especially for the entry price for some of these investors that are abroad. And I'm so happy that you actually started with this one because I think
Yeah,
it needs to have eyes on
very
it.
unique, very
Uh-huh.
unique.
Yeah, the
Very
penthouse
important
is
about,
mine, guys.
yeah, very important about this project. This is going to have a condo hotel management, and so we will recommend this one for a profile that is 100% investment. And of course, they can use it anytime they want. They're the owners, but it's more focused on the rentability and how to making money like another business, like a passive income. And there's a very prestigious hotel in Tulum that has a Mediterranean style, very similar to this, but this one is better. And they manage a very successful hotel called Laila in downtown Tulum, and they will be managing this project, for the rental and also for the food and beverage services, because it's going to have a restaurant. Actually, one of the condos in the front, the only one that doesn't have a pool in the front, they will make this a bigger restaurant, and they will offering like catering, and these guys are like real sharks. Like they will have always, the this project full with a lot of rental. They will offer a bed and breakfast. They will include the breakfast, which is very unique because not a lot of Airbnb, will include you this. So kind of like a hotel style. And they know that even the hotel and beverage services will make probably more money than the rental because they are really experts on that. And the investor will get income from the restaurant too, from this amenity that we will have. So they will not only get an income from the rental of their condo, but they will get an income from the amenities as well. So it's great for them, and they will only charge 10% from the service.
So I
So
want to make that clear for a lot of our viewers is a condotel concept. I just want to make it very clear. It's like you own the space, but it's ran like a hotel. So for those of you that are looking for hands-on investments, this is possibly the best business model that you can use because they basically report back the numbers to you, and you don't have to be worried about the bookings and also too if if the people that are booking it have questions, like they will have a concierge service. It's ran like a hotel. If they want to order food to the room, they can do that. And so I think that that's very practical. I think Airbnb serves a purpose in the market. But there, especially when you're not necessarily close by and something happens, it's so much easier to have somebody at the front desk that can take care of those things.
yes, this is like like a real business opportunity. The project is almost like ready to be operating. We also have an agreement with this management company. They also own a hotel and a restaurant, a beach club on the hotel zone in front of the ocean called Laila as well. And we will have access and free access, of course, because usually the beach clubs in Tulum you have to pay a fee when you enter. And here, you don't have a fee. They give you a discount on the menu, 15% off as an owner of, this project. And of course, your guests, they can go to the beach club. So a lot of investors, they know like beach clubs are big in Tulum, but they're also pricey. So they always ask you, does this project have an agreement with any of the beach clubs or any of the hotel, for a day pass or, to be in front of the beach? So yes, they will offer that. They will offer transportation for that. And not only that, we also have an agreement with a wellness center that is just across the street from this project, where they have jacuzzi, they have massages, they have pools. So they can also, if you're looking for a moment of relaxation, like to disconnect, this can be an option. And you can use the area, no charge. Of course, if you want a massage, that will have an extra cost. But yeah, a lot of agreements, and the project is just like very, very beautiful, very unique. And we know that this project makes a difference, with the other projects in Tulum. So this one, we know that this one will not be a long-term, investment. This one will be an investment where you can start, having income right away because of if is unique architecture and design. So yeah, very special about this project. Very good.
And thank you, Laura, for mentioning some of the advice for the investors that are going out there, because I think that that's one of the things that we don't really talk about is the fact that when they're purchasing these properties in Tulum, especially, there's public areas to access the beach, but the best views you're going to get is through the beach clubs. And those beach clubs sometimes have a minimum of, spending. And so I think that that's really important for people to have knowledge of, is that if your place has an agreement with the beach club, then that's access to you, and that's a total plus, because those are some of the best views, and also to the transportation to and from, because it's not a walkable distance. You also have to get yourself out there too, and sure, you can bike, and sure, but sometimes you just want to get there, so it'll be nice to have that transportation. And so I think too, as far as like challenges, I think that is one of the challenges. And I don't think that the people understand that a lot of the along the shores for beachfront is no longer being allowed in Tulum. They wanted to preserve the ecosystem. They wanted to preserve the beachfront. And so, to get a beachfront property, that's kind of a thing of the past. And so right now, Aldea Zama is basically the evolving area, and that's why we want to point it out. So thank you, Laura, for sharing Pink Riyadh, and thank you for just sharing one of my favorite places. And so, Laura, what do you think is one of your biggest advice to, as far as someone who's looking to invest in Tulum? Because I feel like you've already made it clear, it's a long-term investment, but what do you think is your biggest piece of advice in terms of somebody that's looking to, and also too, it's a two-pronged question, because if somebody wants to go live in Dubai, sorry, wants to go live in Tulum and wants to be there long term, is there other industries that they can potentially invest into? And I'm thinking in terms of, I know hospitality is a big one, but anything outside of real estate, what are sectors that are growing in Tulum that could possibly also to help them understand what other sectors are evolving in the area?
In Tulum, of course, it's the hospitality, and like you were saying, the real estate is big, and of course, restaurants and all that. But what we don't have in Tulum is a like the commercial area. Yeah, we do have a lot of restaurants and bars, but like you were mentioning earlier, furniture stores, like we have a lot of real estate. We don't have furniture stores in Tulum. There's one, super pricey, not a lot of options. People, they have to travel all the way to Playa or Cancun in order to find furniture, in case you buy a property that doesn't come with furniture. And it can be any business. It can be a veterinary, because we don't have I guess, the commercial infrastructure for that. So it's that will be that. And another area industry that is growing so much is the wellness. There's a lot of international wellness retreats in Tulum. I have a client that he invested in a property in Tulum, but he said, I'm not gonna be renting it. It's for me, because I have annual, like, 4 or 5 wellness retreats in this resort, or in Tulum, and I'm making people recover from, I don't know, losing weight, or recover from anything. So the wellness is growing a lot. So for those that are, I don't know, looking to open a gym, to like a yoga studio, this thing is growing a lot, and a lot of people there go to Tulum for that, because it's peaceful. You have the jungle. It will stay like that, because Tulum is a magic town. So we wanted to stay like a small. There's only 40,000 people living in Tulum, and we wanted to keep like that. Of course, it's very touristy, but that industry is growing so much, and it's leaving a lot of money, for the people that is doing that, besides, real estate and hospitality. But we don't produce like vegetables, or things like that. We don't have big industries in Tulum, but this is what we have, like, and also the um the hospitals. We don't have enough hospitals. We have only one hospital right now in Tulum. And the schools, we don't have like big schools. They are thinking about opening the Green School, which is an international school. And but that can be also great because lately we've been having a lot of Canadian Americans. We want to move to Tulum. Last month I have a few clients. They came and they're like, I'm thinking about moving to Tulum. I love Tulum, and I want to bring my family here. Can you give me more information about schools? Can you give me more information about this, and that? So medical field is growing a lot. So that can be also an opportunity. And we also sell not only property, but we also sell commercial. So if you are thinking about putting a business, or that can be a great option, or just buy this commercial place to rent it out. That can be also a very good option because not a lot of that, not a lot of that. So
I
I think,
think, and that's a really good thing to point out because I think Tulum as a concept itself, I just want to make it clear for the viewers, especially too. Tulum is a kind of place that gets very quiet after 8 p.m. and nighttime comes. Tulum is not going to be the kind of place where you're going to have like big boom booms, like maybe Cancun, where they have these nightclubs. They will have them, but it's not the kind of place, that's not the concept for it. The concept for it is holistic wellness. And as she talked about, there's a lot of different industries that are tied together into the wellness concept. There's yoga, there's acupuncture, there is mental health wellness clinics, there's sound bath. There's so many different things that go into that. So if you're thinking about expanding not just necessarily your business portfolio, but your business itself, as she mentioned, actually Tulum is a kind of place where your pets would thrive. It's very pet friendly. There's puppies everywhere on the beach. Everybody's kind of walking their dog. And so, veterinarians, if you're out there, we need you in Tulum. And also, too, you touched on the different the furniture store, so I think people need to understand that yes, there is furniture available in Tulum, but you have to understand that a lot of the furniture that's available is crafted, handcrafted. So the artisans that are making this furniture take many, many hours. So it's pricey, but it's also too because it's customized, because it's very handmade. And so I think, there is a need for more furniture to be able to be more accessible, especially to more at a wholesale. And so that's an important thing to touch upon. And then I'm trying to look over also to the different industries that you talked about, but those were just kind of the top of minds and the things that I wanted to talk about as far as Tulum and people so that they understand what the business climate looks like. As far as technology and innovation as well, too, as you know, guys, Tulum is jungle, and we want it to stay a jungle as well, too. So, but it doesn't mean that we can't use technology and innovation to advance it as well, too. It can be a smart jungle. It's a different concept. I think it is already a smart jungle.
yeah.
And so, too, for people that are in the technology and innovation sector, if you see a gap or there's an opportunity for you, this is a place that is basically ripe with opportunity and still lots of gaps to cover because, as you know, it's evolving. But what's important is that the infrastructure is already there and the demand is already there as well, too. So,
Yes. But pretty much any business, because yeah, a lot of people they just come to Playa, they just come to Tulum to go to the doctor or to, and yeah, that can be great. And right now, I think is a great opportunity to invest in Tulum because right now we are growing, we are developing, it slowed down a little bit, but now we still have the great prices. We still have low prices if we compare to Playa del Carmen, two-bedroom condo in Playa del Carmen, like 400,000 in a good location. In Tulum, 200,000, two-bedroom, two bath. And now that is growing, you can start renting. We also have ready to move in projects. And when Tulum is up, when Tulum is fully developed with all the infrastructure, all the hospitals, all the commercial areas growing super fast, how much the prices will be for this, 200,000 condo? It will be like Playa del Carmen, it will be double. And I think it's great opportunity for, for the prices. And I don't know, so my boss, he says, the CEO of the company, he says, buy when there's fear because, it can be a good risk. It can be, it's growing. You are fearing, but it's the opportunity because you have the good prices and, good things will come to Tulum, like 40,000 people living in Tulum, and we already have an international airport, and it's a big airport. So yes, it will be very good in Tulum. So now it's still time to invest here, and it's very beautiful destination. Very.
absolutely, Laura. Well, I think we're coming to the top of the hour, and I really hope that everyone actually have faith and know that everybody that joined and is viewing us from around the world had an opportunity to understand more Tulum from an investment standpoint. It's a beautiful paradise and you should be a part of it. And also too, as a personal testament, is it's my absolute favorite place on earth. And that's why we kicked off the series with Tulum, Mexico, because if you're looking to rejuvenate, if you're really looking to become that better person that you want to be, this is a place that will provide that serenity. And this is a place that will actually see you whole. So thank you, Laura, for joining us today. And for anybody that's out there, join us next month because next month I'm going to prepare a wonderful repertoire. I'm going to have Varun Kapoor join me, and we're going to be discussing Dubai. And as Laura said, I think, she talked about a tip of buy when there is fear. There's a saying in Mexico that says, El que no arriesga no gana, who doesn't risk does not win. And with that, I want to thank you all for joining me today. Once again, your host, Denisse Macias, and I am so excited to see you next time. So follow me, drop a comment, send me all your questions. And Laura, you're a queen. Thank you for joining me today. I appreciate you.
Pleasure. Thank
Thank
you.
you. And thank you to
Take care.
everyone back home.
Have a good day. See you soon.